Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the third Squaring the Circle debate of 2021. The motion to be debated tonight is increasing access to higher education will inevitably result in lower quality graduates. My name is Mandy Mock, and I'm the founder and CEO of Applied HE. Applied HE is the new kid on the block with the aim of creating an alternative solution in ranking, rating, and branding that better serves the need of more learning and employability-focused applied universities, which I believe are dominant all over the world. In a nutshell, Applied HE is an international higher education service provider that specializes in evaluation, branding, marketing, and professional networking solutions. The Squaring the Circle debate is presided over by our legendary debate master, Dr. Kevin Downing, who is the Secretary to Council and Court and Director of the Institutional Research Office of the City University of Hong Kong. Thank you very much, and thanks also to our speakers from the UK, Malaysia, France, and South Africa. Kevin will provide you with a full introduction of the speakers shortly. We're also pleased to note that Dr. Kevin Downing, the chair of Applied HE's Rankings Advisory Board, has published a new book about rankings, the impact of higher education ranking system on universities. The book can be ordered now via the link here or on Google Books. Right, I shall now hand the stage over to Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you for the plug. That was nice, unexpected and nice. If Cornelius and Deborah can now make themselves in video again, that would be very good. Well done, Deborah, you're there. Well done. Cornelius, I'm going to call you Case, yeah? Case de Bon. Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
Great. Still, got you. You're back on video. Your microphone's looking rather askance there, but obviously it's working.
It is.
Okay. The way this goes, the topic we're going to debate tonight is increasing access to higher education will inevitably result in lower quality graduates. Now, controversial topic, and I should point out right at the beginning for all participants that the speakers are not necessarily arguing a position that they agree with. This is an academic exercise. Remember, guys, we're academics. It's sometimes very good to practice taking the opposing position. Philosophers will tell you it's the only way to think. So I would just remind everyone of that. I'm going to introduce the speakers first. Each speaker will have 5 minutes. After 4 minutes, Peter will ring a bell to remind you you have a minute to go. And on the dot of 5 minutes, not being rude, I will actually mute you. So that's to be fair to everyone. You actually have 5 minutes, no more. And there are no visual aids allowed during the debate. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce each of the speakers in the order in which they will speak. So the first proposer for the debate, we're very pleased to welcome Ms. Karen Perronin, Director Executive Masters, École des Ponts Paris-Tech in wonderful France.
Thank you.
Sorry about your performance in Euro 2020, but never mind, maybe next time. Okay, welcome, Karen. She's going to speak for the proposal. And then immediately after Karen, speaking against the proposal we're very pleased to welcome Prof. Abhi Veerakumar Rasivan. Sorry, Veerakumar Rasivan. Yes, that's not bad. Dean of School of Medical and Life Sciences at Sunway University in Malaysia, and chair of the International Network for Government Science Advice in Asia, and co-chair of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Young Scientist Network. So welcome, Prof. Abhi.
Thank you, Kevin.
Very good to have you with us, leading the opposition. Then supporting Karen, the second proposer, that's not second in terms of order of importance, but second in terms of the second person to speak for the proposition, I'd like to welcome Prof. Deborah Mayer, Executive Dean of Science at the Faculty of Science at the University of Johannesburg, which I know very well, in the Republic of South Africa. So welcome, Deborah. Really nice to have you here from that brutalist institution there. You actually have a brutalist architecture, don't you? It's the first time I've ever seen it up close. But
it's a lager.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's quite interesting. Lovely to have you with us. And then last but not least, the second opposer, we're very pleased to have with us Prof. Kees de Bon, the Dean of the Loughborough School of Design and Creative Arts at Loughborough University, UK. And great to have you, Kees, and great to have someone from the arts and humanities faculty represented in this debate. So it's really good to have you with us. So guys, without further ado, we have, I see 62 participants. Welcome to old friends and new, too many to run through, but very pleased to have you on board. Very interesting topic, albeit controversial. I'm going to give Karen her 5 minutes, beginning now.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, everyone. And I'm pleased to be here today. And it's a very easy topic. You say controversial, but from the French perspective, and because I work in an engineering school, we already know that it's not possible to increase access to higher education and to our engineering school if we don't reduce or lower the quality. That's for sure. We know that to achieve outcomes, learning outcomes and competencies and the level of the graduates that we have for the last 100 years, automatically we need a very high selectivity. So if we want more, we allow more students to enroll. That means as well that we will have, for example, to lower the expectation on the mathematics. The science part is very specific and sensitive. And if we are checking the figures, for example, even if the number of students enrolled in engineering school in France between 2014 and 2016, that was more than 6,000 students that have enrolled compared to the previous years. And then we had less 3% graduates from the same engineering school. So that's explained that somehow it's not because we allow more students to come in that more students or the same number of students will be able to graduate. So it's a problem. So I think we should not think about it as, of course, selectivities or expectation, but we should be able to find solution on this diversity, for example, diversity issues. So in France, we are talking about, should we give the same degree? Yeah, we know that we need to have more students to allow more students to come in, but then should we give the same degree to all of them? Yeah, depending on where they come from, how do we select them, and what kind of specialization, for example, and what kind of partners could we have? So that's as well more about the strategy of. We know that we need to have more students. We know that we need to open up, but then we need to find other ways to keep the selectivities for the main degree, or we just say the historical degree, and then to find solution and alternative for the diversity. So I think mainly that is the reality, and I hope that at the end of the debate, and people will still be on board and then vote for what we think is the best, yeah, to keep up with the high quality of graduates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen, with that Orwellian introduction. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Very reminiscent. I should just say, after we finish with the four speakers, I will open this up for comments in 10 sentences, for or against, from all participants. And please start putting your hands up now if something has really made you want to speak. So without further ado, I'm going to go.
Kevin, sorry to interject. Do you want to run the poll or not?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I didn't run the poll. I tell you what, to be fair, we'll run the poll after Abby's spoken and before the two other speakers. Okay. So Abby, I'm going to go to you, give you 5 minutes, and the pressure's on because immediately after you've spoken, we're going to do the opening poll, which I should have done at the beginning, but it's been a tough day. Okay, Abby, off you go.
Thank you, Kevin. So I'm going to start off with the first point, which is widening access to higher education does not equate to lowering of quality of students or the education received. And in fact, there's no evidence. And Karen may have provided evidence, but I'll argue that it's an anecdotal evidence, perhaps unique to the Egalitaire society in France. Studies have revealed that while widening access results in most students with lower levels of academic achievements entering higher education, this does not equate to actual lowering of educational quality. And although on average student progression rates do drop slightly, the retention rates actually increase in the majority of universities as increase of access have happened, suggesting that higher levels of student resilience and that value where the diversity comes from. And in contrast, the evidence shows that increase in access means lifelong opportunities to skill or upskill, as well as the different types of learners who are not traditional high school entrants. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed a great need for employees to be upskilled. Even before the pandemic, we know that in New Zealand, in Europe, that more than 1/3 or perhaps about 1/5 of adult students actually attend tertiary institutions. And according to a new World Economic Forum report, the wide-scale investment in upskilling will boost global gross domestic product, GDP, by US $65 trillion by 2030 and lead to the creation of 5.3 million net jobs globally. So even if we have a narrow definition of quality in terms of economic, increasing access increases it. So why does this false association between increased access and lower quality graduate exist? And perhaps it's really a matter of dealing with this false perception that there exists a skills mismatch between supply and demand. For example, in 2019, half of Malaysian graduates are found to work in jobs unrelated to their degrees. And this data is similar to many other developing and developed world. In this situation, graduates may lack certain skills relevant to the current work, but this does not imply that the quality of education they received or the abilities of these graduates are poor. So the question here is not about access, but what are we providing when we confer this access? And the danger of perpetuating this false association is that we detract from the clear evidence that resisting the increase in access to higher education, specifically in the elite universities, have contributed to the widening of the gap between social classes. Research have shown that countries with higher elitism in higher education are the countries with the highest inequalities, the largest gap in wages, the higher Gini index, and a lower inclusive index. Conversely, Nordic countries, which tend to exhibit lower elitism in their higher education, report lower inequalities where the wage disparity between workers in high-tech and tradable good individual services and the TVET industry is actually low. Maintaining high quality entry requirements detract from the important role that TVET graduates, for example, play in nation and community building. In fact, it hijacks the perceived value of that education. And the increase in access makes the case for supporting younger institutions that are more dynamic, adept, and hungry in helping to actually feed that demand on the ground. For example, some of the things that Sunway Education Group, through the leadership of Prof. Elizabeth Lee, in Malaysia, we have introduced unique non-profit smart partnership initiatives such as the Sunway iLabs that promotes this quadruple helix collaborations between academia, industry, government, and civil society that perhaps older, more established universities might perceive this as, oh, it's beneath them. And the revolutionary KL42 programs and coding schools with no formal entry qualifications is just another example of new models of education that younger institutions are more agile and adapt to bring to the market. So we need to ask ourselves, what do we really mean by quality? Often in our instant gratification and materialistic world, it means the ability to get jobs. But as Rutger Bregman, the author of the best-selling book, Utopia for Realists, says, that the fear of the future is not unemployment, but one where society has an abundance of leisure to care for another, to care for the environment, and to care for the sustainability of our humanity and our planet. Our perceived quality and purpose of higher education must be recalibrated for one that is so focused on training individuals to be better than others, to perhaps one that focuses and nurtures a culture that promotes the need for individuals to be better for others. And it's only through increased access that we can ensure that the quality of equality, equity, and sustainable can be assured. Should not that be what our higher education system strives to achieve? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Abby. I made a comment about Karen, so I should make a comment about yours before we go to the poll. To be fair, I just wanted to ask you, does your university have entry grades? You have to have grades to get into some way, right?
Yes, for some of the courses. So like, for example, Equal 42 is a program, a coding program in school that doesn't require any formal qualifications.
But most of them do.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So to some extent, we're all a bit hypocritical and elitist on the one hand, whilst trying to widen access on another. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that and go to the poll. I'm now going to launch the poll. I'm going to give you all a minute. You can either agree with the proposition or disagree. And then after we've finished the whole debate and you've all had a chance to speak, not just the panelists, we'll launch the poll again and see if you have moved your position or changed your mind as a result of the arguments presented. So I'm launching the polling now. You have 1 minute to vote. Okay, you should have it in front of you right now. Yes, and here we go. People are starting to vote. Oh, it's swinging either way. It's pretty close at the moment. And the more people that vote, the closer it's getting. We got another 30 seconds or so. So, wow, it's so close. So if you haven't voted, you better vote because it is very, very close. Wow, this is going to be interesting. So Karen and Abby, you've done a good job so far. You've confused everyone. We're kind of... All right, I'm going to end the polling in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, okay. Amazingly, I'm going to share the results. 52% agree and 48% disagree. That's a 29 in favor and 27 against, which I think is remarkably close. I didn't expect it to be that close, but it's a much more complicated proposition than people first realize. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing those results now. And without further ado, Karen, Deborah, Prof. Deborah, you're in the lead at the moment by just 2%, which equates to roughly 2 people here. And so it's over to you to present the case for the opposition in 5 minutes. So Prof. Deborah, please.
Thank you. I just want to clarify something that's important to me, and that is that in this discussion, higher education includes all types of tertiary education offered by universities, colleges, or other tertiary institutions. But my examples will primarily refer to universities because that's the context which I am most familiar. Now, calls for universal access to higher education are being done for all the right reasons. For example, that education is a human right and not a luxury, or the undeniable value higher education holds for the social and economic development of a country. But increasing access to higher education places a tremendous burden for successful implementation on universities. These are very busy environments already, and simply adding to the load without consideration of the inherent complexities of the environment will inevitably influence the quality of the institution and the graduate. I'll try to explain the reasoning behind my statement in the next few points. Firstly, universities, as we know, are very ambitious institutions with aspirations of international recognition for creating new knowledge through research. In this environment, teaching is important, but it's not the primary focus. And in fact, international rankings of universities focus on research quality and output more than on quality of teaching and learning. Increasing access to higher education presupposes that the primary and secondary education of the student who arrives at the university was adequate. And if it wasn't, the university must address the gap in student preparedness by providing bridging or foundation programs. Although the funding for these programs can come from governments, the design and successful implementation is the responsibility of the university as well. All the associated support systems, for example, mentoring, psychological counseling, extra tutoring, for the success of these bridging programs is also the responsibility of the university. Students in need of bridging programs more often than not also don't have the funding to study at university in the first place. And government loan schemes are usually not sufficient to cover all the financial needs of the student. And so the university, again, must step in by assisting with fundraising. Many times academics must participate in student fundraising initiatives in addition to their normal work as teachers and researchers. Calls for universal access to university, to higher education also places the burden or responsibility of student success on the institution, because the expectation is that universities must ensure that all who enroll successfully completes the degree. In other words, universities must decrease the gap between enrollment and graduation by having programs in place to monitor and manage dropouts, even though the reason for student dropouts are complex and can range from whether the student was prepared for university in the first place, whether the student could keep up with the institution's standards, whether the student was in the correct program, had the necessary funding, necessary family support, etc. And now universities have to develop anti-dropout programs that make provision for all these complexities. Most academics at universities were not trained as teachers, but as researchers who generate new knowledge in a specific discipline, and their own career success depends on their ability to create and publish new knowledge. Now they also have to take on the task of learning how to teach students arriving at university with different levels of preparedness. Academics must teach and learn to teach better. They must create new knowledge, mentor and counsel students, raise funds for their research and funds for their students' subsistence, and so on. And there are limitations to what can be done in a day. And if something must be dropped or neglected, it's anyone's guess what it is that will be neglected on this complex to-do list. The student's context of family background as an important factor to success must also be considered. If a student's family struggles financially, for example, the necessary emotional, moral support will not be forthcoming, and the institution, the university, will again be expected to provide counseling or other solutions and support. The final point I'd like to make is that the proliferation of distance and private institutions are praised as enablers of universal access to higher education, but the quality of the offerings at these institutions are sometimes questionable. And in addition, academics who feel underpaid may moonlight at these institutions. So in conclusion, increasing access to higher education cannot be considered in the absence of a broader plan to also address issues that arise at secondary school level, and cannot neglect the other responsibilities and aspirations of universities. It's not just a matter of students to staff ratios, but universities with aspirations of creating new knowledge also attract and retain quality academics. A university's role in generating new knowledge and solving problems is never more visible than it is right now, when a university research is at the forefront of finding solutions for the global pandemic of COVID-19. Thank you very much.
Prof. Deborah, thank you very much. Some powerful arguments there for the proposition, very powerful. Without further ado then, I'm going to go now to Prof. Kees de Bon. Kees, you have 5 minutes speaking for the opposition, beginning now.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I want to start with the access to higher education will be based upon the grades that kids have or young people have from their secondary schools. I remember my kids, going through the IB program in Hong Kong where we then lived, and we saw these rich kids. They had these tutors, and they learned all kinds of tricks, to get to get through these exams well, and to get a very high grade. Whereas others, they didn't have learn the tricks, and they ended up having somewhat lower grades, often still good, but so. And then there's also some kids are really smart, but they have stress for exams. They underperform, not to their potential in exams just because of stress. And the third thing that I want to put forward is the also in relation to the grades, that some kids have things like what we now refer to as neurodiversity. They can have issues with reading, so they may not. They may find it difficult to read the assignments, but they could still be very clever. So they may not kind of get the grades that they need. So the first thing I have a problem with is the access to higher education based on grades, because we really do not tap in the full potential of people. There's all kinds of tricks, and very smart kids drop out because they don't get the grades, even though they are super smart and clever. Then there's another aspect that comes to it, is that some people have brains that work different, not just because of neurodiversity, but being more, and now I talk about the arts and design, who have a very different type of brain set. They are not kind of always thinking in very linear ways, which is quite useful for mathematics, physics, and those kinds of subjects. But they have kind of all kinds of very rich associations. You cannot always trace back where they come from, but they can be really, inspiring and worthy. Would you want these people not get access to higher education? And then I want to jump to the skills that are needed for the 21st century. They are not just mathematics. The skills for the 21st century are about teamwork, creativity, empathy. These skills, collaboration, these skills are critically important. It's not about being good just in one discipline. It's being able to work with others and have the social skills and the empathy for others to do well. And then again, having a creative brain that may not, fit in the let's say the rational linear thinking that is acquired to get the high grades, but that leads you to very new types of thinking, to new types of solutions that would not be, let's say, we would completely not be able to tap from that if we would not allow these people to come into higher education, which I would think is not just a almost like a criminal act to stop these people from coming in. I think we also, as a society, we would really regret deeply not to have people with open, creative mindsets with empathy coming into higher education. I leave it here.
Thank you very much, Kees. Very powerful as well. Actually, your argument reminded me of a speech I heard once by Karl Popper, actually saying that, if we only have one way of thinking, then we only have one type of knowledge, which of course, getting a bit philosophical, but quite interesting. Now, I want to open this up to, thank you to all the speakers. I think you've all done an excellent job. I want to open this up now. So I want to see some hands coming up from the participants. I've got one up already. Let's get a couple more up before I start, and I'll try and take them in order. Just before I do, Abby, I noticed in the Q&A, there's a question from someone, from Finu Jose. And Finu, I hope that you will raise your hand and ask that question live, please, so that Abby can answer it live. He's actually said he'd like to answer this question live. This isn't a question and answer panel, but I'm going to go to Finu very quickly, and then I'm going to go to my friend Ahmed Al-Kuwaiti, immediately afterwards. So Finu, 10 sentences, and it's just for you to make a point, what you think, not for Abby to answer. Finu, you have the right to speak. Hello, Finu. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Finu. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is
Ahmed. Hi, Ahmed. It's actually, I've asked for Finu to speak first, then I'll come to you, then I'm going to go to Suparto. So just hold for a second, if you could, Prof. Ahmed. So, Finu. Obviously not such a burning question after all.
No, it cannot unmute
yourself.
Sorry?
It cannot, or she cannot unmute herself, or
I've allowed her to unmute on here. LMNO, hang on, allowed to talk. I'll do it again.
Oh, coming up.
Yep.
Yeah, hello, can I hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead,
so much. I'm so glad I joined, and gratitude to each one of you for putting this together and amazing points. My question was not for Abi alone. I wanted to reinforce what Deborah and Karen were saying about how access has to be equitable, but getting out after getting in from higher educational institutions should be a little more better monitored, like Deborah mentioned. And I think for me, it is women all the way, Deborah and Karen. Yes.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine, Finu. That's no problem at all. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. I'm now going to go to Prof. Ahmed. Sorry, Prof. Ahmed, for holding you up there. I'm going to go to Suparto after you. So please go ahead. You should be able to talk.
Sure. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all. I really enjoy listening to the four of you, and for you, Kevin. The question what I'm really looking for is still, Deborah, she mentioned some, but still I'm struggling with it as a Middle East education, as a Middle East case. Are we looking for quality graduates? This is a big question. In spite of increasing demand on the university education, if I have in my classroom 150 students at a time, where's going to be the quality of education? I think we need to speak about the culture of education in every country, which varies between country to country. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you make a good point there. If we took this argument all the way, would everyone have a university education, and would that necessarily be a bad thing? But then where would we get the plumbers and the people that allow us less practical individuals to live a reasonable life, running different businesses? I'm aware that these are all very sensitive areas, but if we take it to the limit, surely, as much as we might want everyone to have a university education, I'm not sure that that would work for society as a whole. At the same time, I don't believe that anyone should be denied a university education. So I'm rather conflicted myself. Okay, Suparto, I've given you the wherewithal to speak. I'd like to see some more hands going up. Lovely to see you again, Suparto, and please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I was a little bit surprised knowing the result of your polling, that only 50% pro and then 48% against the idea, because I thought it was 70% pro and then 30% against the idea. It's for me, it's interesting that now we have more people who already think differently. I agree with Abi in this case that when we talk that having more people and then decrease the quality, I think this is conventional way of teaching learning in a university. When the teacher was the main sources of the knowledge that the students have. But now in a disruptive area, we cannot think in a linear way. The students now is able to find the information, the knowledge and such kind of thing from a variety of sources. What is important for the student is the objective of this activity. We can say that nowadays we cannot control where the students come from. We cannot control when the students have to get the knowledge. What is important is that we direct them where to go. Where to go here is the objective. By having the objective, I think number is not a matter at this time. But in the old time when I was student, yes, because the teacher was the, let's say in quotation mark, the main sources of the knowledge that the student have to master. But nowadays they have more ways to get the knowledge, not only from the teachers. So numbers does not really influence the quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Suparto. I think again you make some very good points. I've got another hand come up from Tia Schumann. So Tia, I'm going to allow you to talk now. Can I ask others to please put their hands up in advance, because it allows me to know, give me some order to conversation. And can I ask people to say where they're speaking from and whether they're speaking for or against, or whether they're confused like me?
Hi, good day. Very interesting topic. I'm from South Africa. I am of the opinion that giving more access to students will lower the quality. As an academic, I feel my role is not only to get knowledge to a student, but also to work on a student as a whole. You know, maybe because of the social background and the educational background of students in South Africa, I spend more time sometimes on non-academic issues like trying to support them, you know, in housing, in extra tutoring, in access to resources. So, and as Prof. Meyer said, we can only do so much, you know, and the more students you've got, the less time you can spend to students. There were a time that I knew every single student in my class by name. Unfortunately, those days are gone, and they miss out on my very detailed attention. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. I think you make a very good point, reinforces what Prof. Deborah said earlier in relation to the time spent on academic matters and on actual support matters for students at all universities, actually. You know, even in the most developed countries. I think in the US, they have all sorts of issues like this, probably far more than anywhere else in the world. I'm going to go to Chandrika next, then to Charmaine, and then to Gil. So I'll go first to Chandrika. I've just asked you to unmute. Hi, Chandrika, welcome.
Hi, I'm from Sri Lanka, from the University of Colombo. We have had 7 decades of free education, and thereby there is naturally a limitation of resources within the state universities, and there is a huge number that go overseas. And then when they do come back, there are dilemmas that authorities do face. So, you know, it's an emotion, it's like emotional blackmail is what I would suggest in this instance. I mean, you want to give education to everyone, but you cannot, like what Deborah said, you know, resources are limited. And, but still for all, when it comes to the actual on-the-job problem solving, working, there is not much of a difference with those who come from overseas with questionable educational exposure versus what we think we are giving the best. So it's difficult.
Thank you, Chandrika. I think, again, you make a good point. I think I'm right in saying that Prof. Ahmed made the point earlier, and I think the same is true for the subcontinent of India rather than Sri Lanka. You have some of the largest universities in the world by student numbers. And we think we're pretty big at CityU with roughly just under 20,000. But 50, 60, 70,000 is not unusual in India or in Saudi Arabia. I think I'm right in saying. So I just kind of share that bit of information with everyone. And I'm now going to go to Charmaine. Welcome, Charmaine. I like your little
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
emoticon. Yeah, hi.
Okay, I'm Charmaine. I'm from South Africa. And I'm speaking for the proposition here because I tend to agree with Prof. Deborah. I'm an academic and I teach large classes. And when I say large classes, I don't know if I could say I'm fortunate or unfortunate to have taught 500 plus students. It's very difficult to handle students when there's so many in the class. So I tend to feel from my own personal perspective that my quality is going to go down when you're trying to deliver material to so many students. It gets easier when the class is smaller because then you can focus on all aspects of the student, as Tia Skuman said earlier. You know, for the whole part, the student is not just there to what's the word I'm trying to get out? Just to get knowledge. I mean, there's a whole support structure, as mentioned by Prof. Deborah earlier. And being a human being, you can't just be there to be part of their knowledge gain only. You have to be part of their whole experience as a student at university. So I would definitely agree that just from my experience of teaching large classes, that the quality has to suffer somewhat. So yeah, thank you.
That's very interesting. You raised the issue that actually university is not just about the academic component. It's about a transition, isn't it, from adolescence, if you like, or young adulthood to full responsible citizenship and adulthood, probably.
Absolutely.
And that could be used, I suppose, both for and against the argument. From my perspective, I can see that could be used as an argument for and an argument against. But the issue of large classes, I mean, 500 is, and we lecture to 500-600, but we would never have a class of undergraduates of that size. You know, not for tutorials or anything like that. Okay, thank you, Charmaine. That's very interesting. I'm now going to go to Gil, who's recently relocated to Portugal, where the weather is beautiful, from Kazakhstan, where he worked before. So he's in the sunshine. Gil, you've been allowed to talk. Be lovely to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. I'm American, obviously living in Portugal. One of the things I've noticed, and it may not be worldwide, is that a lot of times parents are the ones that are pushing the child into higher education when they're not ready for it. In certain parts of the world, and I'll take the US for example, this can cause a lot of problems later on. For example, taking on student debt that they can't afford to take when they work, pushing people who should be more in a vocational area into higher education. European universities, and I think European governments have it right. We have 2 tracks, one for higher education, one for vocational education. But my main point is that I see this happening all the time, that parents pushing the child into not only the university, but to the particular program in the university when the students aren't ready to, and which can cause a tremendous amount of debt later on in life for the student.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful point, that parents, I mean, particularly, I don't know about the US, but certainly in Southeast Asia, I'm in Hong Kong, working in Hong Kong. Wow, the pressure upon the kids and in China is absolutely overwhelming, to a point that some of them don't make it, not because they're smart, but because they just break emotionally because of the weight of expectation, often from parents that never had the opportunity to go to university. And now their parents have worked very hard to send them to university, and the kids really feel that weight on their shoulders. And I've seen some very sad outcomes from that since I've been working in Southeast Asia, for sure. I'm sure it happens in many parts of the world. Okay, any other hands to go up? We've come to a slight hiatus. I can't believe you've got nothing. Oh, Alexander. I'm going to go to Alexander. Alexander, where are you speaking from?
I'm speaking from the Philippines.
Oh, hi. Good to speak to you. And you speaking for or against, Alexander?
I think I go against increasing access, having massive access to higher education.
Okay. Go ahead.
The reason is because there was a point in time in the Philippine history when the Constitution considered the partnership between private and public education. Then suddenly the politicians realized that it would be great to make higher education free. It would make them very popular. So Congress churned out laws favoring public education, and unfortunately, most of the public education institutions in the Philippines are ill-equipped to take more and more free college students, not paying any tuition. At the vehement opposition of the economic gurus. Nevertheless, Congress proceeded to make education free. And so we don't have, vocational education is now very unpopular. Not many are going there. Higher education is overcrowded. The private education system is dying. And they're increasing taxes to the private institutions, private higher institutions. And I just don't see any good at this point.
Thanks, Alexander. I think quite passionately made. One of the things I was going to ask you that we haven't really touched on as much as I thought we might so far in the debate is it resulting in lower quality graduates?
I do not have the facts with me, but right now, what would you expect? They gave huge amounts of funds to make smart universities in the public school system, but the students don't even have access to smartphones. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Okay, I don't know whether you saw just recently, the UK government is bringing in a rule to ban smartphones from all schools from September. Having lectured to a room of Hong Kong students, or 500-600 Hong Kong students, that would be a wonderful thing here. not to have the phones going off and mummy saying, "Are you concentrating?" Anyway, let me just go to Shamim in Malaysia. Thank you, Alexander, for that comment. Shamim.
Thank you, Kevin.
Hi, Shamim. I've allowed you to talk. You need to unmute. That's better.
Can you hear me?
Yep, can now.
Okay. Right. My take on this is that you can increase intake, no problem. But you have to sieve, you have to be very selective, because everybody wants to go to university because they say, I'll get a better job if I go to the university. Now, when you open the floodgates and everybody gets into university, you'll have those who are not there because they qualify to be educated within the, well, I would put it this way, within what you call a basic university education. For me, a university education is for someone, when you come out, you graduate, you should be able to solve world problems. You could put you anywhere. It doesn't matter what degree you have. You'll be able to adapt yourself in many different situations. But today, instead, you find people saying that the university should be training you to get jobs. Is that the role of the university? Is that the role of the university to train you to get jobs? Or is it the role of the university to give you access to become a student, but to develop yourself in order for you to be able to adapt yourself to any job situation?
Thank you. Thank you, Shameen. I think, again, that's a very important point. And I think we should all remember how much universities have changed from the very elite institutions they would have been, you know, just 100 years ago. Many of us here are first generation. I certainly am. I'm a first generation university goer. And my parents would have never had the opportunity to go to university. In fact, my father hardly had the opportunity to have an education because he was required to work on the farm in order to maintain an income for his parents and his brothers and sisters. So, you know, I think we shouldn't forget that the whole definition and nature of what we mean and expect from university, the term university and a university education, has changed a great deal. There's one thing I would take issue with Shamim about that I think is worth bearing in mind. I've always had this notion in my head that universities are not, I agree with you, not necessarily at undergraduate level about preparing people for careers. But I think what an undergraduate degree should do is enable an individual to think relatively objectively about their own thinking. Chandrika, Chandrika, we can hear you. So I don't know whether you're ordering a cup of tea or something, but we can, it's better. Okay, so for me, an undergraduate education should be about helping someone to learn about metacognition, thinking about their own thinking in an objective way. Maybe at postgraduate level or for some vocational type courses, medicine, dentistry, etc., then it is about preparation for a career. But at the same time, Shamim, I agree with you, it shouldn't neglect that element of, I suppose nowadays they call it general education, which allows you to learn about your own thinking. Guys, that's been really fascinating. I'm looking to see if there's any more hands up. If there isn't, I'm going to give each of the panelists in reverse order 1 minute to summarize their point. So I'll begin with Case speaking against the proposition. You just have 1 minute, Case, to see if you can sway the final poll.
Thank you very much. The one thing that I was really makes me a bit angry is that people say it's so much effort to train kids that are not already, you know, that come in with not good enough levels. It's almost like you're a hospital and you say, well, those who are very sick, we don't want to take because they maybe will die anyhow. So we have much better results with those who are not really sick and we only take those. You know, you have to think much wider. It's not about the amount of effort. It's about the impact on society. And I think some people completely forget about it. And that's what I'm very passionate about, you know, defending my position.
A nice point. And I couldn't agree with you more. If you do a PhD, it's intended to make you sick. No question. Okay, thank you very much, Case. Prof. Deborah, your turn. 1 minute.
So my point is that everything cannot be piled onto universities. More effort should be made to prepare students better at secondary and perhaps even primary school level, because you cannot expect universities to take on teaching only. My reason for becoming a professor is because I want to generate new knowledge. Teaching, yes, I can do it along the way, but I want to solve problems. And the fact that now in our history, we have the first mRNA vaccine solving COVID-19 is because of universities being allowed to do research. So our primary focus should be research, and we can add on to the teaching, but effort should be put in to improve secondary education so that when students come to universities, all the work doesn't have to be done at universities to prepare them to survive the university. Thank you.
Thanks, Prof. Deborah. I'm now going to go to Abby. Abby, your 1 minute begins now.
Thank you. I will not add beyond what Cornelius has brought about the issue of equity, the issue of making sure that nobody is left behind. But I think one of the things that, while I agree with my proposers in the points that they bring, but when Prof. Deborah talks about resource limitations, when talks about the operations, the need for universities to be afforded that ability to focus on research, that detracts away from the fact that we need to increase access, because actually those are two different questions. Resource limitations should not be used as a reason why we do not actually try and aspire to achieve that desired state. And therefore, my case here is notwithstanding the resource limitations, notwithstanding the desire to ensure that we solve the essential problems out there, increased access to education is certainly something that we have to aspire.
Thank you, Abby. And last but not least, Karen, you need to unmute. Yep.
Good, thank you. Well, I think we have as well to refocus on the goal. What is the objective, or what do we want the university to do or to create? What graduates means, right? Because then if it's the role of the university to create citizen or the right citizen, and then what about employability? What about the social economy, the evolution or the development of the country? So if we have a huge number of students graduating from universities, then how are they going to find a job? Are we ready? Depending on the country and then the level of development, are we ready to integrate or to insert them in the job market? So, and then I think as well, we all talk about higher education, but don't forget about continuing education. Yes, because then there is the first step, of course, and that is the easiest, where we say we should educate everybody in the merrier, right? Should come in higher education. That on the other hand, now we really are in the society where we rethink education, and then where everyone at every step of their life and career can go back to education. So how we should as well, reconsider that point.
Thank you, Karen. Just before we go to the final poll to see how we've got on, I just want to point out that in many parts of the world, including Hong Kong, universities are sectorized or classified. So you have research intensive universities, you have professional schools and universities, and you have liberal arts universities. Unfortunately, that comes to be seen as a restriction, because universities are by their very nature often ambitious institutions, and everyone wants to be a research intensive university, certainly in Southeast Asia. Anyway, I just throw that point in at the end. What I would now like to do is go to the poll, give you 1 minute to vote, then I'll share the results. While you're actually voting, I will say my thanks. Okay, so we're going to relaunch the polling. Remember, it was 52% for and 48% against. It's been a really good debate, wonderful debate. There you go, you have 1 minute. I'd just like to thank, while you're all voting, I want to thank the 4 panelists. Diverse disciplines, diverse parts of the world. It just demonstrates this is the way to solve problems. Diversity is the way to solve problems. Bring people together, different perspectives, different ideas, and debate something in an interesting, fun, and civilized manner. This is the way the world should be solving problems. I think I can't remember a debate topic that has produced such a variety of different perspectives. I'm a little disappointed we didn't spend more time on quality, but I fully understand why people kind of only alluded to that rather than tackled it directly. 5 seconds left for the polling. Thank you for all of you who've listened, and for all of you who spoke up. Absolutely wonderful to hear from you and from your perspectives from around the globe. Okay, guys, I'm going to share the results. Surprising. 57% for and 43% against. So I suppose I should say congratulations to Karen and Deborah, and commiserations, but you put up a wonderful fight, gentlemen, Abby and Case. But I should say that the ladies and gentlemen were rather dynamically allocated, and there was no question of gender, placing people in particular roles because of gender. But having said that, sorry guys, the girls have got you. So I want to thank our panelists, thank Applied HE, Peter, Mandy, Simon, and to thank all participants, particularly those of you who spoke up, but also the lurkers that undoubtedly voted and made the whole debate good fun. Thank you very much. I've learned a great deal tonight, and I very much hope you have too. Stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. I'm now going to hand back to Mandy, and I have to do something called give control back to Applied HE, which I will try to do. Thank you.
Right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for the very interesting discussion. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I'd like to express my deep appreciation to our wonderful speakers and moderator for their time and contributions, and also thank you, our great participants, for joining us for this Squaring the Circle debate. This is the third debate of the year, and while this marks the end of this particular webinar, we have many more events lined up in the months to come. The next Squaring the Circle debate is on the 1st of September with the topic, Universities that want to be globally relevant must teach in English. Very controversial indeed, so make sure you attend. As you can see, we have a debate scheduled every other month on the first Wednesday of the month at 8 p.m. Singapore time, which is noon GMT. So please mark your calendar. Our immediate next webinar is one of our regular Fireside Chats series. This is scheduled for 4th of August at the usual 8 p.m. time slot, and organized in partnership with Education Insight UK. The third Fireside Chat of 2021 will pose the question, PhD in the 21st century, what it takes. Aside from webinars, Applied HE does a lot of other things as well. In January of this year, we launched the world's first composite world university ranking called the Rankometer. This is a new rank that is based on one single and transparent benchmark. Now, we all know that there has been a huge proliferation of university rankings in recent years. Students, parents, and even employers simply don't know where to look for a reliable comparison of universities. With the Rankometer, we've solved that problem by providing a transparent and reliable measure of university quality. What is a Rankometer? To be precise, the Rankometer is a composite ranking of the world's 5 most influential world university rankings. If you haven't already, you can check the results at appliedhe.com/Rankometer. In addition to launching the Rankometer in January, we also launched Future, the world's first professional networking platform created specially for the higher education sector. And Future aims to connect everyone from high school to professional career to lifelong learning for the 3 E's: education, employment, and everything in between. These are the most important career milestones in life, from the moment you are a high school student to being a student in higher education, to being a successful graduate, employer, entrepreneur, or even an alumni donor. And all these stakeholders will be centered around institutions and industries and the 22 employment clusters. Now, there is nothing like this on the market, so we are in a very blue ocean indeed. Future is designed for higher education leaders, students, alumni, and employers who want to stay informed about the latest developments in the higher education sector. And besides the usual social media activities, you can also use Future as a teaching aid, and we will be introducing a new feature to help you with alumni engagement and management, something many universities are still not very strong in. In the pipeline are also services for student recruitment, internships, research collaboration, and lifelong learning. In short, eventually Future will include the entire higher education and career experience from leaving high school all the way to retirement. It's free and it is the only professional networking platform you'll ever need. The new feature I want to touch on in Future is the alumni engagement.
How do you feel?
Institutions of higher learning in many parts of the world have long estimated the value of their alumni network. And we all know that investing in alumni relations can provide a high return on investment for an institution. A strong alumni engagement strategy is not built overnight, but fortunately, Applied AG can help your institution get started. Simply go to Future and sign up as a user, and you can start connecting, engaging, and managing your alumni from near and far. If in doubt, please ask us for a demo. Extra, I've been mentioning this at every webinar that we've organized, and that is, we can promote your institution's news to your global target audience. So please send us your extraordinary news and press releases, or you can upload it yourself onto Future. It's yet another complimentary service from Applied AG, so do take advantage of it. And I'm pleased to say Applied AG now has 3 rating systems. They serve as benchmarks and marketing tools to your institution's quest for global branding and excellence. We have the all-round job ready rating system to evaluate the quality of teaching and learning and employability of your graduates. An English ready rating to evaluate the quality of English language instruction in non-English speaking countries. It's also a great marketing tool for the recruitment of international students. And the online ready rating, which helps your institution benchmark and promote its online programs and courses. So do reach out to us if you would like to learn more about how these tools can translate into affordable strategies for global branding and marketing for your institution. We're also delighted to announce our first round of English Ready rated institutions. A warm congratulations to Changchun Christian University from Taiwan, TDMU from Vietnam, Universitas Kristen Satya Wakana from Indonesia, and Soki Jaranata Catholic University, also from Indonesia, for offering excellent English as a medium of instruction or EMI programs and being the first institutions in the world to be Applied AG English Ready rated. Do contact us if you would like to have your institution's English language programs rated as well. I also mentioned Kevin's new book on rankings at the start of this webinar, so be sure to order it from Google Books. And last but not least, as you know, we are the new kid on the block, we still are, and we're very grateful for all the support that we can get, which is why I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all our very supportive webinar partners. A big thank you for the valuable support given to Applied AG. Right, thanks very much, everyone. But please do not leave the room yet. We want to invite you to experience a networking atmosphere that is as creative and as close as we can get to a physical networking environment. So we're going to open the room now for a few minutes so you can all see each other, say hi and introduce yourself, have a chat. You can also leave your name and contact in the chat box, and even with a message of your intention if you wish. And this is as much as we can do for now in the name of networking. So please turn on your cameras. So over to you now, Peter, to get our social event started. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, Mandy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm trying to put you all on camera right now. So if you've already been promoted to panelist,
if I stop sharing?
Yeah, could you stop sharing, Mandy?
Sorry.
So I'm just trying to switch on the music. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it should work. Okay, so go ahead, switch on the camera, say hello, say who you are. I'll keep clicking away so that everybody can join.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, sorry. Hey, you. How are you? Muted.
All right, yeah, feel free to unmute and shout out. There's no process. I'm very busy clicking because I'm very late to clicking.
Okay.
While I click, please talk. I can't multitask. So just, yeah, you can unmute, say hi, where you're from, which institution, or whatever you'd like to do.
This is as close as we can get to it.
Oh, hi, Shaman.
Hi.
Simon here.
Hi, Daniel.
Daniel is here. Hi.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Nestor.
Hi, Nestor.
Good evening to each and everyone. Yeah. I'm Nestor Ong from University of Santo Tomas, Philippines.
Welcome.
Hello there, it's Wolf from the University of Johannesburg. I've learned a lot from this. I hope to join you again in the next sessions.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm from the University of Johannesburg also. South Africa.
Oh, we've got many from South Africa.
Inviting me in this webinar.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I am Suparto from Indonesia.
Which uni?
Hi, Suparto.
Sorry?
Which university in Indonesia?
Oh, Muhammadiyah University in Malang, Indonesia. Oh,
I think you always come to our
I
event.
communicate with Simon. Simon, did you send an email to me?
Me? Yeah. I remember you.
Right, anybody else want to say hi? Yeah,
yes,
go for
hi.
it.
I'm Anitha, working in Oman, Majan University College.
Okay, I'm still trying to add people, but just Zoom is misbehaving tonight. It's horrible. So we keep trying. So we have a lot of South Africans today. Well, South Africa is lunchtime now. You guys were on your lunch break, decided to join us?
It's mid-afternoon more than lunch break. It's just after 3 in South Africa.
I see. So you all joined us after lunch, and you instead of taking a nap, you woke up and you came for our session. Thank you so much. Are you all working from home in South Africa, or you can come to the university already?
No, we've got a very bad third wave in South Africa at the moment. So we're working from home and trying to figure out how we're going to do our second semester, because in South Africa our academic calendar is a bit different. So we start with our first semester in the beginning of the year. So we're moving into our second semester now.
Lots of challenges. Yeah, in Malaysia, I'm in Malaysia, a few other speakers and participants here as well. Yeah, we're also locked down. Some of us can't even leave their house, unfortunately, depending on which district it is. So this is it. Anyhow, anybody else still want to say bye? If I couldn't make you panelists, I apologize. I'm clicking like crazy, but the thing is just not working. So anybody else want to say hi?
Yeah, I'll say hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel. I'm also from the Sunway Education Groups with Professor Abi. Congrats to the debaters. I think it's quite a debate. I was opposing the motion. That's personal, not just because of Abi, but because I always feel that expansion is good in the long run. It's nice to see the audience here. Yeah, it's the night in KL, so looking forward to the end of the day, and I suppose a good way to stimulate the mind just before bedtime. Who knows, right?
Okay. If that's all the rest of you, a lot of you are just smiling, which is also lovely. If that's it, then I think I'd like to wish you all a good afternoon, a good evening, or whatever part of the day it's in. Please join us again for a future event. You will surely find our emails in your mailbox. We're very confident of that. So you can re-register for whatever comes up. So yeah, please stay in touch with us, and in the meantime also stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive, and all those things, and see you again soon. Bye-bye, have a good day.
Thank you,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Everyone.